Guys, and welcome back to the channel. This is Michael from TOEFLresources.com, and today I want to talk about a few trends and changes I've been noticing in the TOEFL independent writing question over the past couple of years. Basically, it seems like the independent writing question is getting longer, it's getting harder, and it's getting more specific. Now, the reason for this is I believe that ETS is trying to eliminate the use of memorized examples in the writing section. What I mean is that some students, before they go to the test center, will memorize a big chunk of text, almost an entire essay, in advance. And then when they see the question, they'll just change a few words in what they've memorized so that it matches the question. Obviously that's a really bad thing to do, and the test is changing, I think, to address that trend. So to see what I mean, let's first take a look at a very typical independent writing question. It's about what values are most important to teach a child. Now, this is still the most common style of question. Most of the independent writing questions used on the test look a little bit like this. Now, the thing about this question is that it's very universal, right? We've all been a child, and we've all thought about honesty, and we've all thought about patience. This is very easy to kind of wrap our heads around. And it's also very easy to use somewhat typical personal examples to illustrate our argument. Like, you can probably use an example about meeting a new friend or working on a project at school to illustrate whatever your argument happens to be. Here's another very typical question. It's about grades and students at school. We've all gotten grades and we've all been to school. Very easy question to think about, and we can also use the sorts of examples that I mentioned just a moment ago to illustrate our argument. Lastly, here is a very typical paired choice style question. It's about where you would like to live. Everyone has thought about where they would like to live, and we've all been to cities and we've all been to small towns. And again, you can illustrate your choice by talking about a time you met a new friend or a time that you applied for a job. And those sorts of examples, you can use them again and again and again with these typical questions. Now, I do want to repeat, I call these typical because they are still typical. Most of the questions in the writing section look like these three samples. But these days, there are a few more challenging questions popping up now and then. Take a look at the one on the screen. When employees feel that the management of their company is doing something wrong, what do you think is the best way for them to respond? Talking to the media, speaking directly to the management, or quitting their jobs? This is still a multiple choice question, right? The structure of the question is the same as it's always been since like 2006. But this is less universal. Most of us have never been in this position, and most of us have probably never really thought about this kind of situation. So it's more challenging, and you're less likely to be able to use those very typical personal examples. Like, you're not going to be able to talk about meeting a new friend to illustrate this essay. You're going to need something more unique, something you haven't thought about before taking the test. Here's another of these new style questions. A school wants to train teachers to use new methods in their classrooms. Which is the best way to train the teachers? Have all of them attend a training program together, or have some of the teachers attend the program and later show their coworkers what they learned? Again, this is a typical sort of multiple choice or paired choice question, but most of us haven't been teachers. Most of us haven't thought about teacher training. This is going to be new to you on the test. It's less accessible, it's less universal. And again, you probably can't use an example about applying for a new job to illustrate it like you can for 100 of the other very typical questions. I also draw your attention to the fact that this is a longer question prompt than you're going to see in like the official guide to the TOEFL. It's got basically a lot more words in these options. Now, I've been talking about long question prompts for like the past 5 years. This is not new, but it is something that takes people by surprise. All right, you can basically stop the video now. This is the point I wanted to make. There's newer, longer, more challenging, less universal question prompts popping up on the test now and then. Now, most of the time, you're going to get something typical like you see here. But don't be surprised if you get one of these challenging new style questions. I'm going to keep talking for like 10 more minutes about nerdy kind of teacher junk just to make myself feel good about how great I am. But you can turn off the video now. All right, so take a look at this page, which came from the 6th edition of the official guide to the TOEFL. This is the new edition, which came out about 6 months ago. Now, the thing about the official guide to the TOEFL is that it rarely changes. The bloody book is almost the same as it was in 2006 when the first edition came out. So when something in the book changes, you do got to pay attention because it's probably important. You see here, they've got a question, do you agree or disagree that honesty is an important quality for a leader? And they've illustrated this with the story of an article from the New York Times and a survey. Now, the thing is that the student has just memorized all of this stuff before they took the test, and they've just changed a few words so that it matches the theme of leadership and honesty. And here's what ETS says about it. All the writing in this example has been memorized from a prepared text and repeated in the essay. This includes a formulaic reference to a poll in the New York Times. This is not genuine development and will not be credited by raters. Essays with this type of writing often receive a low score. The essay from which the paragraph above is taken received a score of 1. And yes, 1 is a very bad score. So what this tells me is that ETS is probably thinking a bit more about this issue of memorized essays. And maybe they're thinking about this more than they have in the past, and maybe you, as a student, needs to be aware of this change. Speaking of memorized content, here is a picture I took from my blog. The question here is, do you prefer to read books or to watch movies based on the books? And it starts out really good, and the grammar is close to perfect. And the student talks about how if we watch the movie, it'll tell us whether or not it's a good use of our time to read the book. And he talks about Harry Potter, and he said that he was really busy because he played basketball every day. So that's great, right? He's busy playing basketball, and he's going to watch the movie, so he makes a better decision and uses his time better. That's fantastic. But then take a look at this section in bold. Now he's talking about how he played basketball. He's saying that he went to the basketball court and he practiced passing and shooting and dribbling, and he did that with his friend Jim, who he knew since elementary school, and they practiced really hard, and they were invited to join a team, and eventually that team won a local championship. Can you see how this is really off topic? It doesn't connect to books and movies at all. And it feels like the student has just memorized all this stuff about basketball, and darn it, they're going to put that into whatever essay they write. And I'm not a rater. I'm not from ETS. But my impression these days is that if you insert this kind of junk into your essay, you're going to get a big penalty. So, like, this paragraph without the junk is perfect, and you might get a perfect score. But with the junk, your score is going to go down. So the junk is actively hurting your score. So try to avoid using that kind of stuff. Next up, here is another scan from the official guide to the TOEFL. You know, this has the warning, do not use memorized examples. This is a warning that also appears at the test center when you're taking the test. This appeared in the 6th edition of the book, and it also appeared in the 5th edition, but I believe it was not present in the first 4 editions. So again, this is kind of a new thing. Again, with new stuff, you need to be aware of it. Does this make the test harder? Well, yeah, sure, of course. You saw those questions. They are harder. And the score data attests to that. You can see how in 2016, the average writing score was 20.9. That dropped in 2017, it dropped in 2018, and it also dropped by quite a bit in 2019. And this is at a time when the average scores in the other sections were going up. So this makes me think that the writing section is getting a little bit harder, but also that the scoring of the writing section is getting a little bit more strict. So again, you should be aware of this. I would never criticize ETS for this change. I like what they're doing here, or I like what I think they're doing. I want the TOEFL test to be the best possible test it can be. And these sorts of questions, I think, make it a better test. It makes it a more respectable test. So I support that. But I just want you as a test taker to be totally aware, and I want you to be as informed as possible. So if you do have any questions about this, leave a comment down below. If this is the sort of thing you've been seeing on the test when you took it, you really do need to leave a comment down below and let me know whether I'm saying the right thing here. Anyways, I'm going to leave it at that, but I will probably have a video up again next week, so pop by the channel. Don't forget to subscribe. I appreciate all of those subscriptions and those likes and shares. I'll see you a little bit later. Take care till then. Goodbye, guys.